All right, now joining us to discuss the Ukrainian president's visit is Professor Kedibone Phago, director of the School for Government Studies at the Northwest University. Good evening, Professor. Thank you very much for joining us on the late edition. So today's state visit by the Ukrainian head of state was being viewed as a significant one in some quarters ahead of Zelenskyy's arrival. It has taken place. Your thoughts?
Good evening, Fundo. Thank you for having me, and good evening to the viewers at home. So this is quite important and very significant because we have not really expected something like this, especially if you remember right at the beginning that President Cyril Ramaphosa led an African delegation to try and intervene so that this conflict can be addressed right from the beginning. But that was not seen to be a very successful intervention. But I think now, especially from Ukrainian side, and with this kind of a visit, it actually says that South Africa holds a very important role, especially because it is able to get an ear from the Russians due to our historical political relations.
On that score that you say possibly now South Africa is being viewed as having an important role to play in the ongoing conflict or to bring an end to it. Another very interesting event happened preceding that very visit, which was the phone call between the US President Donald Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa, which indicated had taken place. That in that specific conversation, they reaffirmed the urgent need to secure some sort of peace or bring an end to the war. Does that phone call perhaps also lend credence to that assertion that possibly South Africa is that credible peace broker?
And I think we are really on the money there with that point, Mfundo, because the manner in which South Africa relates with Russia, it's quite political and it's unique and it's very historical. And I think President Trump realizes that, and he knows that if he can leverage on South Africa relations with Russia, this can actually assist his mission to end the war. If you remember, when he was campaigning, he actually promised the world that in no time, as soon as he gets into power, the Russian-Ukraine war will be something of the past. But he could not secure that, and the world is actually trying to say to him, where, is that promise? So it is in this particular instance that I think he realized that it is quite important for him to also reach out to South Africa to see if they can, put their heads together in making sure that the Russia-Ukraine crisis is actually resolved.
And where does this place us? Could we leverage off of this, that if we're being viewed as a credible peace broker in this respect, in as much as you shouldn't be leveraging off a war, of course, but South Africa being viewed as that credible peace broker, could that be used to even almost lay the foundation to almost relook the relationship with South Africa or rebuild it between South Africa and the United States here?
So this is a very important point you are raising, and I think we need to be taking advantage of this situation significantly, because indeed it places us in a unique position that the US may want to come back to us and say, maybe we also at the same time need to find each other in these difficult moments. And perhaps even if US itself does not raise this issue, it also says that South Africa should take an advantage of the fact that we are now able to access the powers that be in the US and then raise those kind of issues. Because you must remember that at the time when our former ambassador was expelled from the US, one of the serious frustration was that he was actually struggling to knock at the right doors, get the right ear that would listen to him, and present South Africa's position. So many doors were closed, and now that we are able to leverage through the Russia-Ukraine crisis, I think it's quite important that we indeed take advantage of that and say we do have very strong historical relations between US and South Africa, the culture, the business activities. So we can indeed, engage the Trump administration on these issues at the same time. And I think we need to really take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. And then on President Donald Trump and President Zelensky's own relationship now, we saw Donald Trump coming out on Truth Social, criticizing Zelensky on his comments around Crimea, saying he will scupper a peace deal by seeking to bring up Crimea that they lost 11 years ago. What did you make of just that back and forth where President Zelensky now made it known that they're not looking to recognize the occupation of Crimea?
Look, we have seen, I think earlier this month or last month, the visit of the Ukrainian president to the US and how he was treated. And if we ever thought that the relations between South Africa and the US are at their lowest, I don't think we actually have anticipated what we saw there. It was really a very, humiliating situation to see how President Zelensky was, received and treated just as a Ukrainian president. So I think on that front, we should remember, think that President Trump has not backtracked on the US-Ukraine relations. So we shouldn't actually be surprised in the manner that he continues on that path at this point in time.
All right. Professor, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Professor Kedibone Phago, Director of the School for Government Studies at the Northwest University.